How's it going, everybody? People are certainly talking about a very particular video game series again with the recent release of 2021's Mortal Kombat. I had already ranted about this movie for a good 15 minutes or so, probably, and if you want a shorter, slightly more coherent version, I wasn't a fan. I thought a few of the fight scenes were okay, and most of the actors did a damn good job, but the script made no sense, the story was incoherent, and most of the fight scenes were underwhelming. But, considering the past Mortal Kombat films, this looks like a goddamn masterpiece, especially considering the one we're talking about today, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This has been helmed as possibly the worst film of all time, well, at least one of the worst films of all time, and definitely the worst video game movie. I'm not even sure if I agree with that distinction, because I've seen a little something called House of the Dead. Anyone ever seen that? No? Don't. Let me just put it this way. It's an Uwe Boll film. That's all you need to know. And just by that description alone, you know it's going to be terrible. So, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, even still, is better than pretty much any Uwe Boll film. And this was helmed by a first-time director. I am not going to even IMDb his name because I care that little about this movie. And this movie was virtually doomed from the start. Most of the actors did not return, other than Liu Kang and I think one other, especially when it came to such popular characters as Raiden, Sonya, and Johnny Cage. And yeah, we'll get to him in a minute. So this film picks up literally right where the first one left off, where even with a recap of the original, but they only ever show anything Liu Kang did in the first movie, because like I said, he's the only actor that came back. Because I guess every other actor read the script and they thought, nope, I have a career that I'd like to keep. But, so, we've got this, we're starting off basically on a clean slate here when it comes to the actors, which is, I guess, okay, because the cast in the original Mortal Kombat, I should probably talk about the first Mortal Kombat first. The cast for the Mortal Kombat was mostly pretty good. Johnny Cage is annoying, but everybody has shit on him, so I'm not going to go into it here. I am not a fan of the original Mortal Kombat. I think it's really dumb, and I think it's really poorly written. Is it entertaining to watch? At times, but most of the time it's just dull. Reminds me a lot of the new film, actually, where there are a few scenes that would be pretty fun to watch, like on YouTube, but the rest of the film is just boring and really not worth your time. But that looks like glowing praise compared to what I'm about to talk about in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This killed the Mortal Kombat franchise. I know what you're talking about. Oh, there's a lot of these movies that kill franchises, like Batman and Robin killed the Batman franchise, or Spider-Man 3 killed the Spider-Man franchise, or Terminator Genesis killed the Terminator franchise. This didn't stop these studios from making Batman Begins 8 years after Batman and Robin, Amazing Spider-Man 5 years after Spider-Man 3, and Terminator Dark Fate 4 years after Genesis. These franchise-killing movies didn't kill the franchise for almost a good 2 decades before the film franchise finally got some steam again. So, this movie, like I said, it kicks off right where the first one left off, where all these villains come down. I'm not going to remember most people's names because I really don't care. So, it's got all these villains that, like, pop up, and I'm going to preface this right off the bat. I don't have that much experience with Mortal Kombat. I've played some of the newer games, and I know the first one was kind of a mashup of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, and this one is an adaptation of Mortal Kombat 3. I know nothing about Mortal Kombat 3, so I'm not gonna talk about differences from the game, because honestly, that feels kind of pointless even if I did play the games, because this movie's bad enough on its own. So then they get into a fight with these people, and Johnny Cage is killed in the first 7 minutes. Now, I know most people didn't like him in the last film. I didn't either. I thought he was annoying, and I thought a lot of his lines he was trying way too hard. It's kind of like Ezra Miller's Flash and Zack Snyder's Justice League. But really? One of the faces of your franchise, and especially of the first movie, you're gonna kill him off in the first few minutes? I mean, we were probably saved a lot. We were probably saved from a lot of more shitty one-liners, but really? And in such a lame-ass fashion, too. He wasn't even, like, taken down in some real badass glory. He just gets his neck snapped. And it didn't even look like, the way he moved, it didn't even look like that would snap anyone's neck. That wouldn't snap a twig. But the plot of this movie... Plot. Well, you see, about the plot, what you have to understand about the plot is, this might have been a mistake. This movie has no plot. I mean, technically it does, but A, it doesn't make sense, and B, it doesn't make sense, and C, it's just, has no coherency regardless. It's pointless to talk about the plot, because all it is, it's a weak-ass version, it's a weak-ass way to bullshit all these fight scenes together. This reminds me a lot of Can't Stop the Music, where it barely has a plot, and it's just a plot that's barely strung together with a bunch of music videos. Same thing here, but with fight scenes. And most of these fight scenes are not very good. Something I praised about the new Mortal Kombat was the first fight and the last fight. The other fights were just kind of lame. This one, the fights are so dumb. There is literally just a bunch of people flipping around most of the time, and you all even if you haven't seen the movie, you've probably seen this clip on YouTube of Raiden and one of the reptiles where they're just spin kicking at each other and not hitting anything, and they do it about 6 times a piece. They both just kind of spin around, do these stupid spin kicks and don't hit each other. And that sets the... Just seeing that on YouTube, you could probably figure out that's how most of the fight scenes go around. They're just doing all these, especially that fight in particular, just doing all these stupid ballerina flips and not, like, actually doing much fighting. And some of the and a lot of the fight scenes are just, like, the first one, the fight scenes had a point. They either developed a character or moved the plot along. Hell, even in the new film, even most of the fights aren't very good. They still at least have a purpose. Mostly. And there's 1 or 2 fights in there that were not right. Like the Liu Kang fight with the guy in the armor, I can't think of his name, in the new one. That fight was pointless, and it was really bad. But in the first film, the only one that didn't really serve a purpose and was just bullshitted in was the fight between, ironically, the reptile and Liu Kang. This one has 2 reptiles fighting Raiden. So, if they had made a third one, would they have had a scene where somebody fights 3 reptiles? But this time it would have been Sonya or Jax or somebody. I'm just spitballing here. And I would talk about the final fight, but you know what? I'm going to save that for later, because that's a special kind of dumbassery. There's a side plot in this movie involving Liu Kang, where he, like, goes off and finds this guy who looks like Boo Boo Stewart for some reason, even though this is, like, 1997? So, and then he has to discover his animality. Out of all of the finishers that they could bring from the games, they opted for the very fucking worst. This is something I do remember from the old Mortal Kombat games, were the animality finishers, and they were so lame. They were, like, they had all these creative finishers, especially when it came to ones like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who I'll get to in a minute. But the animality ones are just so lame. It's like you just transform into, like, a giant dragon, or what was there also, like a spider, a snake, or something, but I'm just gonna use a dragon as an example, because that's what Liu Kang turns into. Just turns into a big-ass dragon and just bites the person's top half from the torso up, from, like, the hips up. They just bite that off. That is so lame. And there's a reason that hasn't been brought back in any of the new games, because it's lame. And also because I think this movie killed that regardless, but that's not the point. They opted for the most lame finishers, and they don't even do much with the animality stuff in the end fight. But again, I'll get to that later, because that's a special kind of stupid that needs its own little rant. So, that's like the only plot I was able to follow, because the plot involving Raiden and his brother, I guess, I think that's who it's supposed to be, was dumb, with a whole lot of overacting, and it's pretty silly. And speaking of silly, there's a lot of, like, really dumb shit in this movie that just makes no sense. Like, even just these small things, like the stupid hamster wheel ball that looks like it was I would say it was ripped right out of Robots, but Robots came out after this, but whatever. You guys ever seen that Robin Williams movie? You should. That's actually really good. Maybe I'll have a Diamonds in the Rough review for that at some point. And it's like the people have to, like, hold on to it, like, and they're, like, facing each other, and they're constantly, like, moving around and, like, hitting each other and stuff. I'm like, there's two problems with this. One, this is stupid, and two, why didn't they face opposite directions? This is, especially where the fact that off-screen Sonya and Raiden had to do the same thing, that would have been actually funny to see. I'm not gonna lie, but instead we watched Liu Kang and some other chick, I can't remember who it is, do that, and it's just awkward. But seeing Sonya and Raiden have to do that would have been funny. I'm not gonna lie, that would have been pretty damn funny. And then there's the stuff like Sub-Zero, again, we'll get to him in a minute, creates a bridge, like, of ice for the heroes. And this ultimately ends up being pointless because Liu Kang just flips over the bridge regardless. What was the point of the bridge if you can just jump over that, dumbass? So, now we'll get to Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Why are they here? I know why. They're the two most popular characters out of this franchise, but weren't they both killed in the last one? I know this one, the Sub-Zero says he's Sub-Zero's brother, I guess. But there's no explanation given for Scorpion. And of course you all know the suckers line from Scorpion when he kidnaps Sonya, I think. I can't remember. I don't remember most of these characters unless they're ones from the new one. And yeah, so Scorpion is given no explanation of how he's still here, even though he was beaten by, was it Johnny Cage? And Sub-Zero's at least given an explanation, even though it's a half-assed explanation. But Scorpion's just kind of there. And suddenly Sub-Zero's on the hero side, even though they're the ones who killed his brother. This doesn't match. So I guess it's as good a time as any to talk about that final battle. Oh, what a special piece of shit that scene is. So, they show up to this temple, I guess, and Raiden fights his brother. God, this is still so stupid. And ends up getting his ass kicked. But then Liu Kang discovers his inner animality. That is just a stupid word, too. Animality. Just, ugh. And he becomes this horrible-looking CGI dragon, I want to say. But then the villain, I don't care enough to remember his name, turns into this Hydra? It's some kind of weird lizard-looking motherfucker with 3 heads, so I'm assuming it's a Hydra. And how long does this last? About 12 seconds. Maybe. And then Liu Kang just ends up beating him in hand-to-hand combat regardless. What was the point? We wasted all this time focusing on this stupid animality crap when it ultimately ended up being pointless. He fights him and he ends up beating him in a regular fight. And the actual animality stuff lasts about 15 seconds tops. And not to mention, it's some of the worst CGI that's ever been put on film. And I guess I should talk about something that people mostly complained about in the first film, but people don't really seem to bring up when talking about this film because it doesn't matter, it's already bad enough, is the PG-13 rating. Now, I've never complained about a movie getting a specific rating. For instance, I had no problem with Venom being PG-13. I didn't have a problem with the later Terminator films being PG-13. Those were terrible on their own anyway. But people seem to lose their shit when certain films are not given an R rating. Why? These Mortal Kombat films weren't good enough, the R rating wouldn't have made these films good anyway. And the new film was rated R, and honestly, it was just kind of forced, it seemed like most of the time. The finishers, there were like 3 of them, and there were a bunch of F-bombs, mostly out of Kano, and that seems to be the only other way it got an R rating, were like 3 finishers and a shitload of F-bombs. I mean, I know that's how you get an R rating, but it seemed like they were really pushing to get an R rating, especially since apparently a lot of the fight scenes in that movie were cut for some reason. But these films, people lost their shit when it was revealed that these films were going to have a PG-13 rating. I don't care. I only care if a movie is good, because like the upcoming Blade film from the MCU, I'll put my money on the fact that it's probably going to be PG-13, and when that's revealed, people are going to lose their shit that it's not an R rating. And I think a load of people went apeshit when the original Suicide Squad wasn't given an R rating. I know the new one is, but the original didn't get an R rating, and I think people lost their shit about that too. Grow up! I realize I'm saying that as you need to stop complaining about getting a lower rating, but grow up! God, it shouldn't matter if a movie's PG-13 or R or anything else as long as the movie's good. If Venom had been a shitty movie, like I said with Venom, I didn't mind Venom was PG-13 because I didn't mind the film. Had it been shitty and R-rated, it still would have been a shitty movie just with an R rating. For example, the new Mortal Kombat, had that been PG-13, it wouldn't have made a difference. It's a shitty movie whether or not it's PG-13 or R. Same thing with these films. So, yeah, this is possibly one of the worst films ever created. I didn't have much to talk about here. I just needed to get a video out, and since Mortal Kombat's a fairly recent release, I decided, what the hell, let's give this train wreck a viewing. And yeah, and you all probably know, normally I ask you guys to leave your thoughts in the comments, like, did you like this film? Do you think, do you disagree? Do you think this was actually good, or do you, in my diamonds on the rough, do you think this is actually bad, or why? I don't think there's going to be a single person on this, who watches this channel, that legitimately likes this film. Whether or not you can get some entertainment out of it is an entirely different issue. Because me, I can actually find this movie to be pretty entertaining because it's so batshit insane. Just like Dragon Ball Evolution. I'm not a Dragon Ball fan, so I find Dragon Ball Evolution to be a hilarious bad movie. I can watch that and laugh my ass off, and I'm not getting pissed about it because I'm not an anime fan. I don't watch Dragon Ball. The same thing with Mortal Kombat. I've just never really gotten into the Mortal Kombat games. I'm not much of a fighting game kind of guy. Like, my favorite fighting game is Injustice, Gods Among Us. So, that tells you all you need to know right there. So, yeah, I would say leave your comments down below, but let me see. So, instead of saying whether or not you actually like this film, do you find this to be a so bad it's good film? Or is it just plain bad? Or did it piss you off just as bad as other films did for certain fan bases, like Last Jedi or Batman v Superman, or any of the cartoon live-action movies, like the Smurfs, or the new Tom and Jerry, or Gem and the Holograms, or all that crap. So, let me know down in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and next time, we're going to be journeying into one of the scariest places in modern cinema. The Disney remakes. So, yeah, until then, I'll see you all next time. Bye.